And a cat doubles in size in 10 days. Look at the difference in protein content of these various animals. You see, as you increase the rate of growth, you need more protein. See, so that was Osborn and Mendel's basic mistake. Okay, so we've looked at some of the historical figures in terms of our scientists. Let's take a look at some anatomy and physiology here for a minute. Now, I understand most of you here believe in creation as opposed to evolution, and that's just fine. This is not what I'm discussing here, so don't make a mistake. What I'm talking about is the present state of the human being, no matter how you've decided it got there, okay? So we're going to avoid this particular conflict, and I will not make my opinion noted here. I will instead let you realize clearly that we are not discussing this at the present time. What we're discussing is the present state of the human being, regardless of how it got to where it is. When I was growing up, I was told by my mother that it was important for me to eat meat. Okay, she told me it was important to eat meat. Johnny, she'd say, you have to eat meat because if you don't, you won't get your protein. And I would chew and chew and chew and chew this piece of beef until I'd get it chewed into this round, fibrous ball that I couldn't swallow. And I'd eventually take it and stick it under the edge of my plate or pass it off to the dog. Now, if my mother knew the things that I just taught you about protein needs, she would have said to me, Johnny, don't eat that meat. You got the wrong kind of teeth. Feed it to the dog. That's the animal that should eat the meat, she would have said. Now, when people make a mistake and try and eat meat, what happens is it often gets stuck in their windpipe, and they have what we call coronary cafes. Cafe coronaries. And these cafe coronaries is where the meat gets stuck in the trachea, and that's why we have the Heimlich maneuver to take and pop that chunk of meat out. Nobody gets a cafe coronary from eating rice or potatoes. Compare the teeth of a carnivore with the teeth of a vegetarian. You know, a chimpanzee is a vegetarian. Basically, they live on leaves and roots and bark, and they do eat animals, by the way. They do eat little tiny animals like termites and little tiny rodents, they do. But it's not for nutritional needs, it's a social thing. It raises the status in the family. If you go out, a male goes out and catches a little animal and brings it back to the females, okay, it's a status thing. But look at the teeth of that chimpanzee and compare it to the teeth of a true carnivore versus the teeth of a human being. Now, I'm going to make this statement, and I know it's going to bother some of you, and I know you'll try and contest with me over it, but observe more than a sample of one. I've talked to over probably 100,000 dentists and dental hygienists in my career. And every time I go to speak, I say to them, I would like you to show me the incisor teeth, the canine teeth in a human being's mouth. I want you to show me the teeth that were designed to reach out, puncture, and kill an animal. And they always point to the four. The four here, okay? Okay? Now, you know, when I did this last week with a group of doctors, one lady came up and tried to show me her fangs. Admittedly, they were a little more pointy than the lady I just showed you, but they're in no way near that of the cat, and you should get the point. On the tip of our tongue is a taste bud for carbohydrate. We are designed as seekers of carbohydrate. You know that on the tip of a cat's tongue are taste buds for aminos. They're designed to seek out meat, aminos, protein, amino acids. The cat does not have taste buds for saccharides, sugar. Why? Because they're not designed to eat these things. Whereas we have taste buds for only saccharides as far as calorie-given substance. We have no taste buds for protein. There are all kinds of other qualities about the human being that tell you that we have to be living in, and those of you who believe in evolution, we have to have evolved in a plant-based surrounding. Why? Because we have a lack of enzymes to make we have a lack of enzymes to make certain things that are necessary for us. that would be found in plant foods. For example, ascorbic acid. Ascorbic acid, you may know, is vitamin C. But in a cat, it's not vitamin C. Why? Because it's not a vitamin. Why? Because a cat can make it. Whereas people, it's called vitamin C ascorbic acid is. Why? It's a vitamin. Why? Because we can't make it. Now, why can a cat make it and we can't? Well, because we are in an environment of plant foods. And plants make vitamin C. So why would we need to be able to synthesize it? It makes no sense. Whereas a cat is in an environment lacking plant foods, so it's going to have ascorbic acid. It's got to make it. Same thing with certain kinds of fats. For example, arachidonic acid is found in meat. The cat cannot make arachidonic acid. It must be in the diet, so they must eat meat. Whereas we can make arachidonic acid from linoleic acid, which is a plant substance. See, so there are all these things that relate our personal state as of now to an environment of us living in plant foods. Here's a couple of other examples. Our brain burns with high preference glucose, carbohydrate. Remember, carbohydrate's only in plants. If we don't have carbohydrate, the brain will adjust and burn fats, but only under great duress. And it doesn't think very good when it's burning fats either. My proof is your friends that eat the Atkins diet. No, there's actually scientific proof to that too. So the brain burns glucose as its preferential fuel. Carbohydrate, glucose, comes from plants. Red blood cells won't burn anything else. If you don't have carbohydrate in your diet, say you've done something foolish like go on the Atkins diet or you starve to death, the body will actually take protein and make glucose to feed the red blood cells. Now, why would we not have enzymes, or why would we have systems that are so dependent on carbohydrates? Because our Creator never intended us to live in an environment without the carbohydrate. Or for those of you who believe in evolution, we would have not evolved in a system without carbohydrate. In other words, if our evolution was for 4 million years or more in a carbohydrate-sufficient environment, why would we have to have enzymes to make things that are always there? Or why would it be important that the red blood cells only burn glucose because it's always around? Okay. Anyway, there are other changes that make us clearly plant eaters. For example, our stomach has a very low concentration of acid in it, whereas the stomach of a carnivore is very high acid, so it can digest the meat. Our gallbladder forms gallstones, which are made of cholesterol. Gallstones occur as a consequence of supersaturation of the bile with cholesterol. And you know cholesterol is only present in animal products. We also back that cholesterol up in our system, whereas a dog and a cat, they don't do that. These meat-eating animals, they don't do that. You can take a dog and a cat and you can feed them egg yolks. Pure egg yolks all day long. What the dog and cat do is their liver just cranks it up, increases the metabolism, takes that cholesterol, turns it into bile acids, and excretes it out the bowel. So you never back it up into the arteries or concentrate it in the gallbladder. And they never get artery disease, and they never get gallbladder disease, a dog and a cat. Whereas people, that's not the case. So what's your conclusion? We were born with the wrong kind of livers, right? Somebody made a mistake. No, your conclusion is we shouldn't be eating like a dog and a cat. You knew that. Okay. Another example has to do with the bowel. The long intestinal tract of a human being is like other plant-eating animals. It's very complicated. It's convoluted. It's got these saculations that we call haustras, which are typical of people who eat plant-based diets, whereas a cat has a very tube-like, short intestinal tract for quickly digesting and getting rid of the remnants of the meat. In other words, everything about our anatomy and physiology tells us that we should be plant eaters, and cats should be meat eaters.